Welcome back to another edition of the Gridiron Review. Alongside Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. The Annapolis High School Panthers. It's like days of yore. Bill, you pick up the football standings today. I was looking at this earlier today. The Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Washington Redskins. Over the AFC side, it's like old days, like New England with Steve Grogan, Oakland with Kenny Stabler, Houston with Dan Pastorini, and the Annapolis Panthers are in the state semifinals. It's almost like a throwback to days gone by. It's been a long, hard road for Nick Goodmalloy to get this program back to where it is right now, keeping more kids in the city at Annapolis, not going to private schools. But boy, has it worked out to their advantage. A great game with Broadneck. Give Rob Harris's crew an awful lot of credit. They played a heck of a football game the other night, but the Panthers are headed to Quince Orchard on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give all the credit to Nick Goodmalloy. He started his high school coaching career at Glen Burnie, did a good job there, but wasn't able to finish the job. You know, naturally, when his alma mater calls, he's got to go. And he has brought back old-style Annapolis football. They're running the football. They're tough, hit you in the mouth. This is what the Panthers did under the great Al Larimore, and Roy Brown continued the tradition. And something has been missing for a period of time. They went through a couple different coaches and tried to do some different things, tried to throw the ball around, which wasn't their cup of tea. But you're right, and the key is getting the best players in Annapolis to be at Annapolis High School. You know, Cameron Hugh, the star of Annapolis, started his career at St. Mary's.
Right.
He was recruited by a private school. Annapolis High needs those kids to go to Annapolis High and play football. And what a great season and a great victory over Broadneck.
He had 5 touchdowns, that's all, just 5. And, you know, the thing about it is, and talking to some of the people in the building there at Annapolis about him, and they rave about him and talk about, you know, how wonderful kid, you know, kid that's really trying hard, enjoys the celebrity that comes with being the football player, but he's not one of those guys that's allowed it to go, you know, enormously to his head either in the classroom Monday through Friday. And that's the thing I think you like and you appreciate about kids like that. Between him, Williams, the quarterback, I mean, they've just done an amazing job. And look, you know, Broadneck the other night, I don't think anybody thought that this game would be this high scoring or back and forth as it was. Give the Bruins a lot of credit. You know, Davis and Schwob did some things in the passing game. Coates had the big kick return at the start of the game for them as well. So a lot to like going forward about Broadneck's club going into next year. They got a lot of those good parts that are coming back. And for Annapolis now, got to go on the road here. You got to go to Montgomery County, and you've got to try and beat one of the Montgomery County powerhouses here in Quince Orchard. And the winner of that gets a shot most likely against the big power that has become Wise High School in Prince George's County.
Right. Well, it's going to be a tough test to go up to Montgomery County and play. Quince Orchard's always a good program. You know, we'll see if Annapolis can take that next step. We should mention real quickly that there's a very high probability the state championship football games will be pushed back a week. They are originally scheduled to be played at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium the week of December 3rd. I guess 1st through the 3rd.
Correct.
And now Navy, there is a very high probability Navy will be hosting the American Athletic Conference Championship game on Saturday, December 3rd. Rather than have some games on Thursday, Friday, and then have to move those Saturday games, they decided to just move the entire state championship weekend, if it comes to fruition, to the following weekend.
Yeah. You know who's the big loser in that? The basketball teams, because they still don't have their football players, and
That'll be a long time.
The season will have already started.
Right. Well, going back, though, Cameron Hugh, in my mind, he sealed the Player of the Year this weekend.
I don't think there's any question about it.
Right. And what I like, and Evan Fockman from Archbishop Spalding is probably the other top candidate. He won the Capital Gazette Player of the Year award last year. He did not win the Rhodes Trophy, which is the coaches voting on the Player of the Year. That went to, I guess, Old Mill. Right. But it went to
Niamatolola.
Right. Alihi Niamatolola won the Rhodes Trophy. But in my mind, what makes Cameron Hugh separates him is he plays both ways. Annapolis led that game by 19 points. Broadneck, after scoring a touchdown, converting an onside kick and scoring again, got within 6 points, 40-34. Cameron Hughes scored the next touchdown to give Annapolis some separation, and on the following series, he sacked Davis. And so that's a guy that's playing both ways. And Evan Falkman is a great player, but he's a quarterback. He does not play defense. This kid goes both ways. He makes an impact on both sides of the ball. That has always, for me, been a big difference maker when I was picking Player of the Year. And I'm not involved with selecting the Player of the Year for the Capitol anymore. That's Bob Hoke and our high school staff. And just so you know, if Cameron Hugh wins the Player of the Year, he is not related to Bob Hoke. Although their names are spelled the same, they're pronounced differently, and they are not related.
No, indeed. And we'll have a Gridiron Review Player of the Year who I could probably tell you right now. It's probably going to be Cameron Hugh, but we can sit there and have that debate. But, hey, when you come up big at crunch time like that, that's what separates you from the rest of the pack. When we come back, we'll talk colleges as Maryland and Navy in action this weekend. Terps need a win coming up this week against Rutgers to be bowl eligible. Still something to play for, and Navy just keeps elevating the stakes higher and higher every week. It's one of the great stories in college football this year. Bill and I will talk about that when we return on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back to the Gridiron Review. Colleges now, and I heard Randy Cross on a national radio show this morning, Bill, talking about the story that is Navy and Will Worth. And each week writes a different chapter of this story about a guy that was basically just going to be the holder at the beginning of the year, maybe get some mop-up duty when Navy was ahead in games or behind in some games and it was out of reach. But all he's done since stepping in for Tago Smith in the second quarter of the opening game against Fordham is lead this team to an American Athletic Conference Western Division Championship, beating the Houston Cougars, beating Notre Dame. Now this week, if the Mids can beat SMU, they're going to host the American Athletic Conference Championship game. And it just continues to be more and more amazing every week. Sean White this week, a guy that was banged up in fall camp, lost his job because of injury. This week, starting, running for 150 yards, looking like Edwin Moses jumping over players on long runs on his 41-yard run for a touchdown.
And looking like Earl Campbell dragging three guys into the end zone on another touchdown.
Spectacular effort by this football team. And I think, Bill, those of us who watch the team all the time, I think you keep wondering, when is that one week? And maybe South Florida was that week where they just weren't quite sharp mentally going into that game. But ever since then, they have been on point, especially on offense, as they score 66 down in Greenville. Well,
going back to the Will Worth story real quick, I was thinking about this morning. Last year, Keenan Reynolds was in the Heisman Trophy running. He tied co-offensive player of the year in the American Athletic Conference. Mm-hmm. Will Worth has put up better statistics than Keenan Reynolds did last year. He is over 1,000 yards passing and rushing. He's on pace, I should say.
Right.
To put
it's already
up
over 1,000 rushing.
Right. And he's over 1,000 passing, I believe, as well. And so, but he may not even be honorable mention. You know that Quentin Flowers is going to get the first-team quarterback in the American Athletic Conference.
No argument there.
Greg Ward Jr. is probably going to get second team.
See, now this is where
I agree. It should be Will Worth, but it's not going to be.
I'm not saying it has to be Will Worth, but I'm saying there can be some debate here about these players.
Right.
And that's where I think, maybe the head-to-head game is what separates the difference here. Now, the thing about it is, too, you look at Houston's 2 wins over obviously big-time competition with Oklahoma and Louisville. That's something you can put in the feather of the cap of Ward. But you look at the head-to-head matchup and you look at the way Worth played against Houston. So I think that's where they go 3 deep in the American. So I think even if one is, whoever's not second team is going to be third team. Right. There's no doubt in my mind Flowers has to be first team. He's just had an incredible year for South Florida. But what has transpired and you wrote all the stories leading up to this before the Mids ever entered. You were writing stories when they were going to be entering, quote, the Big East.
Right.
And then it kind of morphed into the American Athletic Conference. You knew the competition level was going to ratchet up. How Navy has handled that, losing twice. They've lost twice in 2 years.
It's amazing.
In this league. And they're in the tougher division by far.
Right. Oh, well, all the people who are worried about what would happen if Navy went into a conference, are very silent now because the Navy is more than proven that it is one of the top teams in the American Athletic Conference. And I think it is going to continue for the foreseeable future. As long as Kenny Amatalola is there, they're going to be in contention for an AAC championship every year. But going back to the point I was making with Will Worth is that he may end up having a better year statistically than Keenan Reynolds, may end up doing something that Keenan Reynolds didn't do, which is lead a Navy to American Athletic Conference championship.
And beat Notre Dame.
And here's Keenan Reynolds was in the Heisman Trophy running, and Will Worth might be third team all conference.
Get far less accolades.
Right, and a part of it is that Keenan Reynolds had built a reputation over a period of years, and here's Johnny-come-lately Will Worth. But it's an amazing story. And also Sean White, we should mention, that's a great story too, because he could have hung his head. He could have complained and sulked. He's supposed to be the starting fullback, loses the job due to injury, which doesn't often happen. And he just kept on working. And now that Chris High has gotten hurt, Sean White's moved back in the starting lineup and is doing what we thought he could all year. A 255-pound guy that can run with some speed, as we saw in a couple breakaway runs. He is a great player. And Jameer Tillman, we got to mention.
Look, if the Ravens want another Navy guy in their camp who could actually play for them, this is a wide receiver that's going to play in the pros.
Absolutely. He is an NFL wide receiver if I've ever seen one. We had two of them on the field the other night. Zay Jones from East Carolina absolutely just set the FBS record for most career catches against Navy. He and Jameer Tillman are both NFL receivers for sure. What Jameer can do, if the ball is anywhere near Jameer Tillman, he's coming down with it.
And at 6'4", he's a great target. I mean,
Absolutely.
just a fantastic target. The grab he made on the sideline the other night, which was on college football on ESPN, if you saw the highlight, you know what we're talking about. Just a terrific grab there. So the Mids now go to SMU this week, 3:30, for an opportunity to clinch home field for the American Athletic Conference championship game. Meanwhile, Maryland, hey, they scored a touchdown. They're on the board. Got a touchdown this week against Nebraska, but Nebraska just really got going in the first half, and Maryland couldn't stop the momentum until it was too late. And now an interesting game coming up this week. They take on a Rutgers team that has only scored one Big Ten Eastern Division team. Indiana. Been shut out by Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State. Shut out by all four of them. So that's what Maryland's got to beat to become bowl eligible on Saturday, which, look, I know they've struggled against the big-time teams. They did get the win over Michigan State, and they still have a chance to be bowl eligible. So there's still a ton of positive in this first season for DJ Durkin if they can accomplish that.
Well, you got to beat Rutgers. This is a must-win, if ever there was a must-win, in order to come out of this season feeling good about something, about progress. You've got to beat this team, earn a bowl bid. If you lose to Rutgers, that is just
it
so
takes
deflating.
all the positive recruiting momentum away.
It really
in
does.
my mind that Maryland has already established out there.
Maybe one of the most important games in as far as a first-year head coach needing to try to do something to build some momentum. Got to win this game and earn a bowl bid. In my opinion, it's just a huge game. They're just so beat up. They've started the quarterback that hasn't played all season,
Right.
Max Bortenschlager. They're just really down. Their offensive line is beat up. They're missing a couple starting offensive linemen. They can't run the ball.
Missing Lorenzo Harrison
Right. We
because
find
of
out
suspension.
the BB gun incident. Apparently they were shooting people with a BB gun on campus. Not good. But they're just really, really struggling offensively. That's been the issue. But they should. You don't need much offense to beat Rutgers, as you just mentioned. Maryland's a better program than Rutgers. Got to win this game.
All right, we'll talk pros when we come back on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back to the Gridiron Review. Redskins and Cowboys coming up on Thanksgiving. Oh, what a game it's going to be. Why? Because Washington throttled the Green Bay Packers. Kirk Cousins continues to just ring up the dollars. Ring up the dollars with every pass the other night against the Green Bay Packers. He was absolutely amazing. 375, 3 scores, no interceptions. And how about Rob Kelly, the man out of Tulane who had a rather nondescript career there, missed a year because of academics, still had 6 rushing touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns in his career at Tulane. But now Billy goes over 100 yards and is giving the Redskins some semblance of a running attack to go with what was already a potent passing attack in Washington. And the Redskins right now looking pretty good, sitting there at 6-3-1.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson actually played.
Yeah.
And made some plays. I caught a touchdown. This is the Kirk Cousins we saw at the end of last season. He was fantastic. Threw some real darts. The wind at FedEx Field was huge, massive. Wind really affected the game big time. And in that second half, he was throwing darts into the wind for long touchdown passes. Great performance by Kirk, but he is the one benefiting from Fat Rob. Not a flattering nickname, but it is stuck. Fat Rob is given, like you mentioned, a running game which complements the passing game. And it's not all, and Jordan Reed again, he's phenomenal. Talk about a highlight reel move. What he looked like Walter Payton or something on that move.
I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, outside of Rob Gronkowski, he's the next best tight end in the National Football League right now with the game-breaking year that he has had for the Redskins. As we said, they go to Dallas coming up on Thursday. Dallas and the Ravens got together this week, and the Ravens, I mean, for 3 quarters, they played right there. I mean, they really did. And Dallas and Dak Prescott just took over in the fourth quarter. 301 yards passing for Prescott. No Jimmy Smith, and it certainly showed at times in the secondary for the Ravens. But young Mr. Prescott continues to impress for the Dallas Cowboys. And the Ravens, again, this is a roster that's short.
Yeah.
This is just a roster that's short of ability. I mean, I know Joe Flacco saying all the right things after the game. That's a game they should have won. They felt all week that they should beat this team. But that roster's not deep enough to beat teams of an elite quality right now in the National Football League. It's just not.
I agree 100%. When you look at what the Dallas Cowboys tried out, an outstanding quarterback who's a playmaker, a running back who's probably going to become one of the better running backs in this league for many years to come, and Ezekiel Elliott.
Best offensive line in the game.
Best offensive line, and then you got Dez Bryant. Baltimore doesn't have any of that. They don't have a great running back. They don't have a great receiver. They're missing playmakers. You got to have playmakers in this league. You just talked about the Redskins. Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Reed, and even Rob Kelly are better than any.
Jamison Crowder.
Right, better than any skill position players the Ravens have. That is what they're lacking. Joe Flacco just doesn't have much to work with. Offensive line is mediocre. So their defense played great for the better part of 3 quarters. Got to give them credit. But they got worn down by the fact that Dallas had the ball so much because the Ravens' offense just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, but maybe Justin Tucker can invite Joe Flacco over to Royal Farms for a little bit of coffee or something like that, and they can sing Kumbaya together. And I'll tell you what, the AFC North right now, with Cincinnati's implosion and A.J. Green's hamstring injury, he's done for the year likely. Giovanni Bernard's done for the year with a torn ACL. Whoever wins the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game in Pittsburgh is going to win the division.
Yeah,
I mean, really, they're both at 500, and that's what it's going to come down to. Whoever wins that game is going to win the division.
Sad situation. It's just a weak division.
Might win the division at 8-8.
Yeah, probably. And it's going to be probably a one-and-done playoff team, whoever that ends up being.
But you know what, though? You never know, though. But all you got to do is get in.
Yeah, that's true.
All you got to do is get in.
That's true.
We've seen strange things happen in the playoffs to some teams. Remember, Kansas City lost to Tampa Bay yesterday, so.
And where do we stand in the old NFC East? Is this first place on the line?
No, because Dallas is 9-1, Giants are 7-3, Redskins are 6-3-1. But at least get you a little bit closer. Remember, the Redskins had Dallas beat in Washington, going in for the game-clinching score when Kirk Cousins got intercepted in the end zone. Dallas then eventually took the drive down and took the lead and won the game. So
Skins are going to be needing some help from someone else, though.
Actually,
the
they
results
don't.
Yesterday didn't help them.
But they are in charge of the second wild card right now.
Okay.
So that's good. They can handle their business. They hold the tiebreaker against Minnesota, who's a game behind them. So that's like being a game and a half ahead of a team like that. They play Arizona next week, who they're ahead of by 3 now in the loss column. Arizona's coach Bruce Arians, by the way, hospitalized with chest pains early on Monday as well. So we hope that he gets better soon. He's one of the better offensive minds in the game as well. But his team with Carson Palmer looks like a quarterback now in his mid-30s, and he's playing like it as they lost yesterday to Minnesota. That'll do it for us this week on the Gridiron Review. As always, we appreciate you watching. And remember, Annapolis at Quince Orchard. It's a Friday night game at 7 o'clock. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Gridiron Review.